I don't get a lot of opportunity to review cameras on the channel, which really sucks because I love reviewing them. I love learning them, playing around with them, and taking videos and pictures with them. So I was really excited when my buddies over at Epiphan Video offered to send me over a loaner unit of their new 12x LUMiO PTZ, which stands for Pan Tilt Zoom, by the way. I had to look that up very carefully. Basically like a conferencing, business meeting, classroom style webcam. And it's really, really cool. And it's 60 FPS. Let's take a look. So this is the camera itself. And like I said, it is a loaner unit, so mine's actually missing one of the feet on the bottom. This was one that they have passing around. But it is a really cool camera. Now, quick talk about specs. It has 12 times optical zoom, complete pan, tilt, rotate, flip upside down functionality. It can even be mounted upside down and flipped and mounted that way. It can record up to 1080p 60 frames per second over SDI and goes down to 1080i, 720p 60, 1080p 30, 720p 30, blah, 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 blah. Full HD, full 60 FPS if you like it, and it records via SDI, which was also my first experience with SDI. So what I used to test the recording was they also sent me over a beat up unit of their AVIO SDI, which is like the AVIO HD that I reviewed before, and their upcoming, or probably already out, AVIO 4K that I'll be reviewing as well. But the 4K accepts an HDMI input, the HD accepts a DVI input. I needed something for SDI, so they sent me their AVIO SDI. So I used this and their Epiphan Pearl streaming box, which I reviewed before, to record as well. This is a really freaking fantastic camera on the whole, but for what I was hoping to use it for while I had my hands on it, because I do have to send it back, I ended up being disappointed with a specific nitpicky couple things. So you can see on the front, this is where the main lens unit is and where the optical zoom action happens, and it's got quite the amount of glass here for the actual lens unit, which is really great. It is true optical zoom. You don't lose any quality from it. It's like working with a DSLR almost. The bottom features the rubber feet. Like I said, one is missing. It's got some manual switches for controlling some of the technical side of things that I'm not going to mess with. And then it has a tripod screw mount to mount it up on a tripod or other mounting systems. On the front, it has an indicator LED and the infrared. It has a remote control here. I guess I should mention that. Full functional remote control to fully control the camera with. That's the receiver for that is on the front here. And then over on the back, you have some RS-232 funky or another inputs that I'm not going to mess with, a CVBS auxiliary jack, the HD SDI connection, which is what I'm worried about, a DVI output, and the DC power input. Again, I'm just using the SDI video out to my Epiphan Pearl and then for the AVIO SD as well. Now, initially I set it up and I was very impressed. I could already tell that the video was quite silky smooth, the 60 FPS was there, and it looks fairly nice, even in lower light conditions. I was gonna set it up as a completely overkill because this thing is like $1,300. Even though Logitech has a similar option and it's a few $100 cheaper. I'm not sure what the differences are. But they look very similar. But I was going to use it as the world's most overkill webcam. But this SDI cable is really, really short. And all of my A to B USB 3.0 cables for the AVIO SDI are fairly short as well. And I just couldn't bridge the distance from the spot behind my monitor where I needed to mount it to be my face cam for videos and such, and run it straight to my computer for a full USB 3.0 connection. So what I ended up doing was replacing my main camcorder setup, which I had going here. I've since switched back to my T3i, but here on my main tripod for my video studio, and using this bad boy as my A cam. Now, functionality wise, it was the best decision I could have made. But if you noticed in the What the Fact videos and a couple other Tech Tuesdays and such, they were all pretty much out of focus. So you get a whole realm of options to control the camera via the remote when you pull up the on-screen display menu with the remote. So what's really cool is that it actually shows it, well, cool and not cool depending on who you are. It actually shows it on the camera output, which was convenient for me because I had a video preview here on a monitor running, you know, from my Epiphan Pearl, and I could see it, and generally on an input switcher or whatever you'd be able to see it. But if you don't want that showing, then that might be bad for you. But it has a full on-screen display where you can customize pretty much everything from even like the shutter speed, ISO, and aperture, just like a full DSLR setup. You could set up the frame rates and the resolution. You could set up the bit rate that it was outputting over SDI, and then you could set up whether it was autofocus or manual focus, and then you can control the zoom and the manual focus from this remote with the plus and minus buttons. Then you could also set up some presets as to where the camera is focused and where it's angled and stuff. Basically everything that you have going at the time set as a preset. I did not utilize this at first because it seemed I got it to where it was looking okay, and I thought it would save those settings just automatically for the next time I turned it back on. Whenever I turned it back on, it did turn to the right point, but all of the brightness settings and stuff were completely jacked up. And what I found very frustrating is the settings themselves were still set at the same point. So for example, if you leave it in auto mode, it adjusts the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO to match your lighting conditions to produce what it considers to be the best possible image. I set it up with a shutter speed of 120 since I was doing 60 FPS, and then adjusted the aperture and ISO and the SDI gain, which is something I don't have a whole lot of experience with, to make the best possible image. But then when I turned it off and back on, the image looked like it did before I set those settings up, but the settings were still exactly the same. So then in order to fix it, I had to completely jack up the settings and screw them all up, and it was just a very inconsistent experience. However, if I used presets, that may have been a bit better, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense why on one boot of the camera, plus 16 gain, which is what it was at by default, was exactly what I needed, and then in other instances it was way too much. It was a little weird. But my issue with the focusing is you can focus in and out, and I was able to get a full, focus too close in front of it, made it too blurry, focus too far behind me, got too blurry, but I wasn't able to focus on my face. Even autofocus wasn't really able to focus on my face. It was able to focus on my shelf back here, and I completely reorganized my studio space here to sit as close to the camera as I could so it could separate me from my backdrop. And it was clear that if I moved my face, it was adjusting autofocus for my face, but it wasn't ever able to lock focus on it. And it's this exact distance of about 3 to 4 feet from the camera being a main subject, it just wasn't having any of. Because again, it's not meant to be a webcam or a camcorder, it's meant to be for classrooms or offices or meetings where it has a lot of people and you're looking to get the full wide, I believe it's 72.5 degree field of view, instead of getting a one-on-one kind of encounter like this. But that was really disappointing for what I wanted to use it for, because I was like, this will be the best webcam, face cam ever, 60 FPS, got a camcorder over top, unboxings galore, and then it refused to focus on my face. And even with manual focus, I got a couple stops in front of me here, and then back behind me. Could never get it right on my face. It was very, very obnoxious. Another nitpick that I had real quick here is that there is no microphone unit on this camera at all. There's no audio input whatsoever, which is really frustrating because I'm fairly certain SDI can transport audio, but there's none here. Now, again, for a conferencing camera where you'd have another microphone and so on, it's not necessary as the main source of audio. But for example, when I was using it with a dual camera and external microphone setup with my Epiphan Pearl, I was hoping to be able to, I need an audio source of some sort in order to sync up my secondary microphone with the audio. Because in Adobe Premiere, I can just link them up. It'll automatically detect the two audio tracks, line them up, and give me the better quality one of my external microphone. But when there's no audio source coming in at all from the camera, I can't do that. And that was fairly disappointing. And I really wish just some sort of basic microphone would have been thrown on here. Don't play it up and market it as being this great technology of noise reduction, you won't hear any echo at all or anything. Just say basic audio or basic mic for scrap audio, good to go. But again, this is for my uses, not necessarily for what it's intended for. Just wanted to throw it out there. But overall, it's very easy to use if you have the couple little minor tweaks and issues with it aside. The remote is super handy to change all the settings. It's a very easy to understand on-screen display for the most part. It just takes a couple AAA batteries, and then you do have 4 presets that you can set up for where it points and what the settings are and the like. And of course, you can set it up with up to 4 of these cameras. So if you have them placed around a room, you can control them individually with the same remote by just pressing the cam 1 through 4 buttons. The quality is fantastic, especially if you have good lighting conditions and adjust the settings accordingly, and it's recorded over SDI, so you get a very, very not so compressed signal, which is awesome. And it was easy to use with both the AVIO SDI, that is hard to say, AVIO SDI with OBS, or with the Epiphan Pearl streaming box, which is what I've been sort of using on my camera set as well. Great camera, very expensive. It's gonna be for specific circumstances, but I really wanted to take a look at it regardless so I could geek out with it. And for a 60 FPS 1080p camera like this, it does a great job. And that 12 times zoom is just amazing. Like, I'm really impressed. You could zoom in all the way like onto my mustache. And while it would have trouble grabbing focus on that, it still shows you can, like, if you're trying to set it up in a big classroom or business building, you could set it up kind of like a security camera, although that'd be a lot of data going through. But you could set it all the way up in a corner and zoom in on a specific like desk or something and be totally fine. It is really nice. This has been my fairly lengthy review of me geeking out about the the Epiphan Video LUMiO 12x PTZ camera. If I could keep it, I would find a place to set it up and it would work and it would be amazing. But I can't keep it, gotta send it back. Thank you to Epiphan for sending it out. They are not sponsoring the video, they are simply giving me review products as always. I will have reviews of their other captured dongles coming up as well in the future. And if you like the video, smash the like button, get subscribed for more awesome tech videos. Leave me a comment down below if you have any thoughts, if you have an example use for this conferencing camera. And otherwise, I will catch you in the next video.
I also want to take a moment to give a huge thanks and shout out to our recent Patreon subscribers. Without you guys, these videos would not be possible, and I thoroughly appreciate your help. Visit patreon.com/eposvox to learn more.